Good evening. I'm here to speak about our concerns around this quite wide-sweeping legislation. We're very concerned that this legislation, which is being presented as a way to get rid of red tape and so-called barriers to interprovincial trade, really does leave Nova Scotia vulnerable to deregulation, weaker environmental protections, safety regulations, and consumer protections, and may negatively impact local jobs and workers. A key reason for this bill and for eliminating the remaining exemptions in the Canadian Free Trade Agreement is that provincial and federal government policies and regulations are described as a huge burden on the economy. A burden, we are told, that prevents Canada from taking measures to address Trump's threats, maybe, and prevents Nova Scotia from achieving its economic potential. The theoretical economic modeling that we've heard about the impact of removing these barriers doesn't really equal local economic stimulus. Rather, we're concerned that this legislation is about further deregulating and privatizing what is in the public interest. To be clear, there's very little actual evidence of any major barriers that this bill would address that would come down and then result in huge job growth. Indeed, when surveyed by Statistics Canada, over 2/3 of Nova Scotia businesses with interprovincial exports report no obstacles when selling goods to other provinces or territories. The most significant barrier they share with Statistics Canada to trade in our country, and indeed our province, is geography. That is the cost and the availability of infrastructure for transportation. This bill doesn't address that major barrier. What is needed is that we learn from the 40 years of lessons since the so-called free trade agreements between Canada and the US, and the chill that came on the important role of governments in Canada to protect and enhance our social, economic, and environmental well-being. A good example of this is actually public procurement. In contrast to this bill, we have an opportunity now to institute policies for procurement that support local Nova Scotia businesses, that support hiring local workers into decent jobs, into initiatives that would promote local economic development. But according to this bill, any local preference campaigns could be seen as barriers. Instead of this bill, the government should really be seeking cooperation across this country for policies that won't be a race to the bottom. These policies would strengthen labor standards across the country, protect workers, and address jurisdictional loopholes that indeed enable companies to shop for the jurisdiction with the lowest labor and occupational standards. We could seek cooperation across this country so that we can improve standards for a wide range of consumer goods. We could seek cooperation among provinces on electricity sharing through perhaps a construction of key components such as a national publicly owned grid. We could improve affordable transportation of people and goods to actually achieve improved economic and social development and not at the expense of our environment. Let's not further tie the hands of government into making policy decisions in our own interest here. We need investments to support local. We need regulations to be formulated in the context in which they operate, and not just in terms of whether they're the least intrusive for business.